This is part 9 of a series where I cover an iceberg chart I made concerning Undertale and DeltaRune. If you haven't seen any of the previous parts, do so before watching this video. This video contains spoilers for Undertale and DeltaRune. If you haven't played the games or certain parts of it and don't want to be spoiled, I recommend playing it first. This video also contains swearing and is not recommended for younger audiences and is intended for ages 13 and up. All images, music, and footage are owned by their respective owners. Don't go after or harass anyone mentioned in this video. Hey everyone! We are back with the penultimate tier of the iceberg, Tier 9. Before we begin, I just wanted to once again thank all of you for the support on this series. As of the time of recording this, the most recent video that I had posted, that being Tier 8, is now the first one I made and released that has garnered over 1,000 views. I can't even describe how I feel about this, and it really means a lot to me that y'all are really interested in this series and watching it, and that a lot of you seem to be enjoying it. Now, let's get back through an Overstuffed UnderTale and DeltaRune Iceberg Explained. Tier 9. New Home or the Hired Artist. After a long time consuming information and lore about Undertale and DeltaRune, you finally become a freelance artist. You have fun doing your job, and every now and then think about Toby Fox's work, until you finally get a chance to work with him. And now you've gained access to new lore. You're almost done with the iceberg. Tier 9 will include rumors and obscure theories. It will also include theories talking about the future of Undertale and DeltaRune, as well as have unused content for the demos of Undertale. Karmic Retribution. Karmic Retribution is the idea or belief within Buddhism that every deed and action has consequences, and for every evil deed, it will bring suffering. When you fight Sans in the Genocide run, there's KR next to your health bar. Additionally, one of the most iconic lines from the Genocide run is the flavor text during Sans' boss fight, "You feel your sins crawling on your back." This gave people the idea of Karmic Retribution. However, while close, this doesn't hold much as KR just means karma with all caps. And there are lines in the game that use karma during the battle, not Karmic Retribution. Robot Husband Broken Promise. In the planned features section of the Kickstarter, it promised, "Become friends with all the bosses! Hilariously bad dating sim segments." Seriously, you can literally have a robot husband. Unfortunately, you can never date Mettaton or make him your husband. On January 8th, 2017, Toby tweeted a picture of Mettaton dialogue that wasn't within the game and might have been used for the date, which read, "I cannot express my feelings in words. Please listen to this MIDI file instead." Living La Vida Loca place. Seeking refuge from the rainy weather, the child enters a cave and discovers an enormous hole. In the description for the Undertale Kickstarter, it says, "Seeking refuge from the rainy weather, the child enters a cave and discovers an enormous hole." This could be referring to Frisk or Kara, but perhaps more likely the former. It's never stated in the game why Frisk falls into Mount Ebot, so this would most likely be the answer to it. However, the Kickstarter also mentions how you can date Mettaton, so who knows. Origin of Photoshop Flowey faces. The faces this entry is referring to specifically talk about the black and white faces shown on the TV in Omega Flowey's boss fight. Most believe the face to be Toby Fox, though it's never been confirmed, and while it is hard to see, the images don't exactly line up with public photos we do have of Toby. An alternate theory is that it came from the music video Banana Man due to how similar their features are. Happy Town Dictatorship. Happy Town is one of the songs found in the sound test room in Undertale. The idea of this small theory is that they're all forced to be happy. Megalovania almost didn't happen. In the making of Radiation's Halloween hack, Toby said that Megalovania was going to be used for Dr. Enourmous' theme, but never got around to it, and as mentioned earlier, yelled whatever he yelled into the mic and copied it down. So it's possible that if Toby thought of something else, Megalovania wouldn't have happened, or at the very least, would not have been the same as it is now. The Woody Theory. This is a theory that never seems to die, and has pretty much become one of the biggest memes for the DeltaRune community. On Toby Fox's Tumblr, he posted a series of edited clips of Friend in Me. The most infamous version is the last one, which starts off normal, but then becomes an eerie version of it with Randy Newman repeatedly saying, "Friend inside me. Friend inside me." Now, it's common and normal for Toby to post shitposts and jokes on social media, but the fact that Toby made multiple versions of the song, 4 to be specific, made people think that Toby could be teasing something else. This speculation would culminate in a video made by YouTuber Spooky Dude, where he talks of how a character based on Woody would serve as special inspiration for the secret boss of DeltaRune Chapter 3. Pieces of evidence include 1. In a newsletter, Toby talked of how the cowboy section of the game was in danger of being cancelled. 2. People thought that the wording was weird. And 3. Within the universe of Toy Story, it's revealed that Woody was the star of a TV show, which Chapter 3 revolves around. Then Chapter 3 came around and pretty much completely debunked the theory, with the knight being the secret boss. Well, sort of. With it being mentioned that Asgore's favorite show was a cowboy show, and it being heavily hinted that Chapter 5 will surround Asgore in his flower shop, it's been speculated that maybe this Woody-like character would be the secret boss of this chapter instead. Whiffing an attack on Mettaton Neo in Genocide. A rumor spread in the first few months of UnderTale that if you manage to mess up an attack in Mettaton Neo's fight, he'll give a speech as to how Asgore will easily fall to you, and the Genocide run would be invalid. This is based on a murder-heavy neutral route, and the speech is given by Mettaton X. The egg is a parallel to Adam and Eve. The egg could be parallel to the tale of Genesis of Adam and Eve, more specifically, the fruit. In the story, a serpent tempts Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. She did so, and committed the first sin from humanity. In DeltaRune, Chris is offered an egg from an unknown man behind a tree. A lot of Christians believe that the serpent was Satan, or the devil, who took on a different form to fool Eve. It's especially more comparable when you consider that Gaster has ties to the number 6. Smell the pain referenced in DeltaRune. When checking Spamton Neo's check info, it will say, "You won't find higher attack and defense anywhere else. The smooth taste of Neo! Wake up and taste the pain!" This may or may not reference the smell the pain glitch in UnderTale. Temmie one-hit killing after refusing to sell the Shopkeeper. There was a rumor in the early days of UnderTale that the Temmie enemy would one-shot you if you refused to sell to the Shopkeeper. Determination Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is a phenomenon that occurs when multiple people remember the same false memory. Within the UnderTale community, there's a Mandela Effect where people think the word determination appears in red text, when in reality, it only appears with the white and yellow texts. Mettaton Morse Code. A rumor was floating around that there was Morse code spoken by Mettaton within the files of UnderTale. If you translated this code, it would take you to an image of Flowey calling you a naive idiot. This, however, was a hoax made by a fan. Snowdin Town Genocide music different variations. Snowdin's music in the Genocide route, like most of the music in this run, is slowed down by 75% after exhausting the kill count. Usually, in order for this to occur, you have to kill everybody by the end of Snowdin Bridge. However, if you spare the bosses, you can get a new version of the song that is slowed by 50%. The Spade Queen. The Spade Queen was a theory proposed when Jevil speaks of an unseen character, the Queen, if you beat him with violence. and that she'll soon appear. The idea was that she was a character similar to King and Lancer, who was based on a Spade Queen playing card. Chapter 2, however, seems to have mostly proved this theory wrong, as the queen that Jeffel was referring to very much doesn't resemble a spade and is based on a computer. Copying save files is a gameplay mechanic. According to a theory, preparations are complete may imply that 3 save files will be needed to finish the game. Perhaps there will be puzzles to have you repeatedly move your save file to a different slot to progress. DeltaRune Papyrus is Beta Papyrus. It's a bit of a theory within the DeltaRune community that the version of Papyrus seen in DeltaRune, who we have not seen yet, could be the same Papyrus featured in the UnderTale art book and early sketches. Voice Headcannons Hivemind. Not a real Hivemind, but this topic is a joke regarding how everyone's headcanons for a majority of the characters' voices are similar, not counting any VAs or fan-dubs. For Saiyans, people typically go for a deep Patrick Star-like voice. For Papyrus, a high Skeletor-like voice. And for Undyne, a strong, loud, and rough female voice. But sometimes, when you hear it not like that, it won't sound right. The tree represents Toriel. The theory behind this is based on the fact that Toriel tries to take care of the human children, but each time she fails, similar to how every leaf on the tree falls off. The tree could also be symbolism for how Toriel is a good cook but a bad gardener, while Asgore is a bad cook but a good gardener. The church is a cult. This is a pre-chapters 3 and 4 theory that speculates about how the church in DeltaRune worships the angel who created the angel's heaven, which the heroes may need to destroy, while the believers try to defend it. Sound test tracks in DeltaRune. Gaster's theme has been used as a leitmotif in UnderTale before, and we've also seen music and sounds from UnderTale in DeltaRune. So perhaps future tracks in DeltaRune will have similar leitmotifs from the sound test's tracks. Frisk could have given up their soul without dying. The fact that Chris is able to rip their soul without dying might imply that Frisk is able to rip their soul and live fine. However, we don't know enough about Chris to know if this could happen for Frisk or Kara, or if Chris is just an exception. Other Halloween hacks in future DeltaRune chapters. Megalovania started off as a song that originally came from a ROM hack before featuring on Homestuck, and then being released into UnderTale. With a lot of Toby's projects including a version of Megalovania, it's possible that Toby will use or rework songs from the Halloween hack into DeltaRune at some point. Perhaps he'll even recompose Megalovania for the game. Although something tells me that latter part might not happen. Chess theory. The chess theory is a DeltaRune theory created by YouTuber Ozzy Flowey. The first piece of evidence is that there is a lot of division between light and dark, which can be best summarized as black and white, just like chess. So the lightners could be the white pieces, while darkners are the black pieces. King and queen are the analogies for the king and queen pieces based on their movements and roles within the chapters. The theory went on to suggest that the other chapters would have antagonists that are analogies for the game in pieces. Now, with Tenna not being explicitly stated to be a bishop, many thought that the theory would be debunked. However, many would argue that while it's not explicitly stated, Tenna could instead represent the rook metaphorically due to his appearance and movements, and that Gerson is instead a bishop given the setting of the sanctuary and him moving diagonally, especially in a path different from others. Delta Ending. Tumblr user SaveLoadReset proposed a theory about UnderTale and its 3 main endings, and how they correlate with the Angel Prophecy. In the Genocide ending, it correlates with Frisk, Kara, and Asriel, all of whom have seen the surface, and how in the end, they destroy everything where they empty the underground. Despite this, we wouldn't know who the Angel is, and it couldn't have been Kara because they called themselves a demon. In the True Pacifist ending, Asriel does absorb all the monsters except for Nabstabluk and becomes an angel-like figure. What's interesting is that Delta is the Greek letter for 4, so perhaps in the future, a 4th ending will be added which fulfills this prophecy. Shadow crystals show Chris a world where they don't exist. A theory regarding the shadow crystals is that they show Chris versions of an alternate timeline where they never exist, similar to the timelines mentioned by Goner Kid. The Red Jester. The Red Jester is a theory based on the fact that the characters from Chapter 1 were based on characters from a deck of cards. In a typical deck, we have 2 jokers or jesters, one of which is black and the other is red. And we've only seen Jevil, who seems to resemble the black joker, so maybe the Red Jester would appear in one of the upcoming chapters. The Kickstarter hired Muffet. This is a small alternative theory that says how Gaster or the player could have hired Muffet due to the fact that she was added by the Kickstarter. Temmie Ending. There is a rumor floating around after UnderTale's release that similar to the annoying dog ending, there was also a Temmie ruler ending for one of the variations of the neutral ending. Naming yourself quote. This is a fake Easter egg made by Reddit user Nice Retops, which shows what happens if you named yourself quote. Everyman is the Knight. Tumblr user VGFM proposed a theory that states that Everyman is the Knight. For one, his file name is Strangeman, and when we talk to Sham about the Knight, they call them a Strange Knight. The word strange has been used to describe either the Knight or Jevil. Jevil will also acknowledge the Knight once you defeat him. It's also implied that the Spade Queen and the Knight worked closely before he was defeated, and when he was, his cape flew away like a butterfly. Everyman has also been associated with butterflies as he uses them in one of his attacks in UnderTale. Along with this, both were related to Gaster and medieval imagery before chapters 3 and 4. DeltaRune checking if you've installed UnderTale. After chapter 1's release, rumors spread that DeltaRune will check for save files, which is why he told you to play UnderTale first. But this is not the case. Defeating Photoshop Flowey without the human souls. In the early days of UnderTale, a strategy was proposed. That being, you can kill Flowey without hitting the act button in each soul phase. When this happens, it makes the phase loop over and over again until you press the button. Even if this was possible in the default version of UnderTale, the strategy would take hours upon hours to complete considering how weak you are to him during this time in his fight. Papyrus survives his death. This is referring to a glitch that has the potential to happen in the Genocide route when you see Undyne for the first time. This can happen if you walk backwards instead of forwards before Undyne hears you in the bushes, where you can see his sprite standing still in the corner of the screen. This is likely because the sprite was intended for the cutscene, but wasn't removed in the Genocide version. This led to people thinking he either somehow survived, or that he's a ghost. Gerson knew too much. A pre-chapters 3 and 4 theory. Gerson was a wise old turtle in UnderTale, and his age allowed him to know of things not a lot of people do. During the Genocide run, if you threatened Gerson, he'll say, "I've lived too long to be afraid of something like you. Try it, kiddo. I know you can't hear. Knowledge like this is the only reason I've survived so long." This may mean that he knows for a fact that he's an NPC that cannot be hurt, which may have helped him survive, unlike in DeltaRune. According to this theory, his knowledge of the world led to him being killed by a superior just for knowing too much. Muffet in DeltaRune. Muffet is a character who we have not seen yet in DeltaRune, but there are plenty of spiders in the game, which could mean that Muffet may also be in Hometown. It's possible that the reason we don't see her is because she was created by a fan for the Kickstarter, and Fox probably didn't ask them in fear of spoiling DeltaRune. Bugsy. Mugsy was a name in the older versions of the UnderTale demo for the player's name. In later versions of the demo, Mugsy was replaced with a single space, and the final game has it set to Kara. This implies that Kara's original name may have been Mugsy. Muscles.ogg. The code for the song, Sans, is called muscles.ogg. It was found that Toby had made the song before making UnderTale. It was originally made for a Homestuck project in October of 2012, under the name muscles.mp3, but said project was never lifted. The Desolate Hope Similarities. The Desolate Hope is a video game that focuses a lot on boss battles and is made by Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's. A few have noticed how this and DeltaRune have similarities regarding the reusing of characters, having two worlds, and a conflict with the main character. Gaster made of Dark Fountain. Reddit user Gabriel_sub0 proposed on the UnderTale subreddit a theory they had regarding the possibility of Gaster making a Dark Fountain. Some evidence comes from how Gaster talks of the dark and shadows growing and cutting deeper in entry 17, and photon readings negative can imply that light is absent. Tity Consistency. Within the code of UnderTale, there is a list of words that count as swears, with titty counting as one of them. What's also interesting is that its spelling is consistent in how it's spelled when Queen talks about bosom. Soul Knife. Some unused items from the UnderTale demo were found in the comments of the code. One of them was that the toy knife was called the Soul Knife. Other items include butter knives and ancient toffee. Undyne. The files in the demo support the idea that Undyne's name was originally spelled as Undyne, with an I. Object_fake Frogget. This object is the Frogget you first encountered before the spike path in the demo. It's unknown why this Frogget is different and why this has fake in its name. Object_sandbox. In the original UnderTale demo, the box's file was object_sandbox. Menu and 3 question marks. In the UnderTale demo's instructions booklet, when talking about what to use X or Shift and C or Control for, there's 2 texts that have been censored with 3 question marks. Official comics. In the UnderTale Kickstarter, the $45,000 tier goal had UnderTale extra comics and possibly another game. As of now, we have gotten another game that is still currently being worked on, that being DeltaRune. But we haven't gotten any official UnderTale comics. Sure, we have fan comics, but those are fan-made and not official. Considering that the UnderTale clock app was cancelled, and that was another tier goal, it's possible that the comics have met the same fate since we haven't gotten any news about its fate. Guild. In the UnderTale demo, the currency was called Guild instead of Gold. Guild means to coat with gold, and likely refers to Gil, the staple currency used in Final Fantasy. Papyrus' cool song full version. In the UnderTale Kickstarter video, Papyrus mentions that if they donate $30, they'll get their name in the credits, the game, the soundtrack, plus a vocal track by Papyrus called Papyrus' Cool Song. With that said, we have never gotten a full version of the song outside of the clip we got, though some fans have tried to recreate it. Asriel and demo files. In May of 2013, the UnderTale demo was released, with the files containing many character names including BG_Asriel Room. Other file names include Grandpa Semi, Dr. Alphys, Undyne, Mettaton, and Asgore Game Over text. Toriel's eyes are a result of Kickstarter promos. Toriel's eyes in her battle and combo sprites is dark brown. It's not sure why this is, however, For the Kickstarter page for Undertale is a section which has a talking Toriel sprite, and this sprite is in the same color as her dark brown eyes. So it's possible that the color of her eyes are a reference to the starter. What a credent, torturing such a poor, innocent youth. When you encounter Toriel in the demo version of Undertale, she'll say, "What a credent, torturing such a poor, innocent youth," referring to Flowey when you encounter him. In the full release, however, she refers to Flowey as a terrible creature instead of a cretin. This line was likely changed due to how it didn't fit Toriel's character in the final game. A note from your friend. When you download the demo for Undertale, it comes with an instruction manual containing Flowey and Toriel explaining the basics of the game. The last page of the manual is called A Note from Your Friend. It has Flowey in the center greeting the player and saying how he feels like they're already good friends. The manual changes depending on your actions in the demo. If you kill Toriel, Flowey puts a devilish grin and says,
"You didn't even try sparing her, you murderer."
If you spare Toriel, Flowey is absent with the text, "Don't get too cocky," appearing on screen. If you start our Genocide run, all except for the first and last pages in the demo turn into just the Undertale logo with the words, "That was fun, let's finish the job," appearing below it. And the last page only depicts a faceless Flowey. Kara was sent to the underground, or is just the servant of a higher force. In Update 1.01, there was unused text that has wording similar to how Kara speaks. "Greetings. You have made yourself completely clear. Understood. I, your humble servant, will follow you to the utmost." If Kara is the one talking, then this might imply that they may have been serving something. Perhaps, according to the theory, they were sent to the underground to destroy humanity. Real knife based on demo hoax. In June 2013, Tommy Fox went to Tumblr to discuss rumors he had heard, and talked about one regarding a real knife. Quote, "Apparently some person on TV Trope started a rumor about this. There's no such thing. This is a game for all ages after all. I just hate to watch people waste time trying to get something that isn't there." However, in the final game, we do have a real knife. It's possible that Toby got inspiration for this thanks to the rumors. Sans using ketchup as blood is imitating Chris. Noel has mentioned that Chris used to use ketchup as fake blood. This is similar to how Sans may or may not be bleeding blood at the end of his boss battle. It's possible that Toby added this detail about Chris as a reference to this part of the Genocide run. Cucumber Quest is in the same world as DeltaRune. A small theory suggests the idea that the Knight would actually be Nightmare Knight, the main villain of Cucumber Quest. He can be released from an evil individual who wants to take over the world, only to then become a servant to Nightmare Knight. It is then hypothesized that Cain could have summoned the Knight, only to have been taken over by him, and that Nightmare Knight could have made Jevil who they are. The theory also draws parallels to the Dark World to Dreamside from Cucumber Quest, as they seem to share similarities as the Dark World draws on fake stuff while Chris and Susie are real. Gaster talks to you at the end of the Genocide run. A theory made by Sybil's GD suggests that the text you read after getting killed by Kara isn't from them, but instead Gaster, due to the tone of their voice. Gaster could be talking to the soul of the player and putting it inside of Chris, who could possibly be an experiment by Gaster, according to many theories. Gaster made the warp doors. Since Gaster seems to have connections to the Skeleton Brothers in Undertale, and he may be in DeltaRune, and all three seem to have a connection in DeltaRune, Reddit user Aurora_off made a theory that states that perhaps Gaster could have created the warp doors seen in DeltaRune and the door we see in Sans' room. Each hero represents a route in Undertale. According to the theory, each of the trio in DeltaRune represents one of the endings and routes in Undertale. Susie represents the Genocide route as she is aggressive and is eager to attack enemies in Chapter 1. Rousey represents the pacifist route due to how kind and caring he is, and Chris represents the neutral route due to their actions, choices, and behavior being based on the player's actions. Spamton is a ghost possessing one of the Addison mannequins. Spamton has a unique appearance when compared to the Addisons, especially because there's a mannequin that resembles Spamton. There's even a detail where you can try to insert the loaded disc into the mannequin and it wouldn't fit. According to this theory, Spamton was possessing one of these mannequins. There's also a few similarities between him and Mad Dummy. Spamtonia will say,
Friends!
Chris? What are you talking about? You don't need
Friends!
I can make my hands into phones! Meanwhile, Mad Dummy will say, I don't need friends! I've got knives! You can also hear the dummy motif in Big Shot. Chris and Azriel made a model of the god of hyperdeath for Rudy. There's dialogue in DeltaRune that says that Chris and Azriel made a figurine of an angel for Rudy, where the wings were so big that it constantly fell over. This is similar to Azriel's final form in Azriel's boss fight, as well as his computer which says Azriel was working on a game where the final boss has giant rainbow wings. Underbound 2. On Starman.net, Toby replied to one of his friend's posts with a joke saying that he was making a sequel to a ROM hack, Underbound, named Underbound 2. Neither of these ROM hacks exist, however the screenshots were from an early version of UnderTale. The forum post said, Bump. Because now that Coil Snake exists, I finally feel comfortable making Underbound 2, which is not only a direct sequel to the events of Underbound, but also a spiritual sequel to Freebound. I'm using a combination of HDMA and Mode 7 to increase the resolution of the SNES, though at the cost of the color palette. Here's some of the music, using some clever tricks to increase the audio quality, though as a result you'll need to expand your ROM to 256 megabytes. Flowey, a friendly flower. He will help you many times along your journey. Actually the reincarnation of Face from the original Underbound.
We're gonna be best friends!
Main character, young androgynous person who falls into the underground and must use the powers of love to save the world / step-cousin of Squeezo from the original Underbound. There's no magical planet healing music in the sequel, but something tragic happens to your mom at least. That's all for now, stay tuned for updates. I'm programming the new battle system in CC script, and boy are things way easier than they used to be. In the screenshots that Toby showed, it included a fight between two froggets, or test monsters. There was also a talk button instead of an act, a spare button instead of mercy, and an unused spell button. We also saw an animation of Frisk walking, only their outline is black instead of the usual dark brown. There was also an early version of enemy approaching in this as well. Kromer is exactly $1 US. In a donation on Games Done Quick, Toby talks of how they raised 1,997 Kromer. While the number is a reference to 1997, we see that the amount of American money donated is $1,997 US, potentially meaning that 1 Kromer is equivalent to $1 American dollar. You don't want to get caught when the sun goes down. When talking to Sham based on who you recruited for Chapter 2, you'll get some dialogue, all versions of which end with them saying, By the by, it's getting late, isn't it? You should hurry home once you've finished your business here. You don't want to get caught when the sun goes down. It could be assumed that what Sham is referring to could be how Darkners need a fountain, which could be the light, in order to live in their dark worlds. It could also mean that something bad would happen if you remained in a dark world for too long. Us on the board used to have our own boss. Mr. Elegance talks about how back in the day, the board section of the Dark World had their own boss, who was pretty nice, but has now been reduced to King's Peon. It's never been said who their boss was, so we can only speculate. Flowey knows about Darkners. In Flowey's speech before fighting Omega Flowey, he talks of how once he acquires the player's soul and gains new powers, monsters, before displaying Toriel's face, humans, before displaying Frisk's face, everyone, before doing the spinning face, will be shown what this world really means. With the everyone part and the details of the face he makes, it is implied that Flowey is aware of the Darkners. DeltaRune line stickers give future plot details. There's a set of line stickers which were released, but some of them felt too specific and sort of gave out some plot details. For example, the most haunting Noelle sticker, where she's kneeling and saying, "That's not you," is very much in line with the Snowgrave route. The thorn ring is symbolism of the crown of thorns. A common theory regarding the thorn ring is that it represents the crown of thorns worn by Jesus during his torture before his crucifixion. This is further supported from both Spamton and Noelle, who may have a connection, having plenty of ties to religious imagery. Flowey mimics Gaster's face. Tumblr user Skeleton Dumbass Central pointed out something about Flowey. One face that Flowey makes when he's absorbing the human souls, and the face he makes after while laughing, looks very similar to Gaster's, which means he could know of his existence. Secret message on flight dashboard. Reddit user ItSaveGBLTPTA tried to see what the dots mean on the flight dashboard. They thought to translate this into Morse code, but that went nowhere. Then they thought if this could be notes for a song. It seemed to work. This song has a resemblance to the song Trouble Dingle. Wishing Room Echo Flowers quoting Noelle and Des. In the Wishing Room in DeltaRune, there is a series of echo flowers that talk of two people in the underground wondering about the surface. It's commonly theorized that it's Noelle and Des talking to each other. This is given even more evidence since we do know that the holidays do live in the underground according to the alarm clock. Undyne is a rock killer. In the early parts of UnderTale, it is implied that rocks are sentient, such as the talking rock in the ruins, a rock that disappears and reappears, and Sans' pet rock. In Waterfall, there's a scene where rocks are falling into the void endlessly, which is weird considering some rocks are alive. Undyne does confirm that she was throwing rocks, meaning she has a body count consisting of rocks. Undyne had control of the timeline at one point. This is a small yet somewhat well-known theory made by Tumblr user The Irkin Pony, which goes over how Undyne could have had the ability to save and reload. For one, it's been said that it has been a long time since a human has been found, and it was said that the most determined can control the timeline, implying that it changed when the sixth soul lost determination. And Flowey was only created fairly recently at the start of the game. So in time, between the sixth soul and the creation of Flowey, Undyne, the most determined of the monsters, could have had control of the timeline. When DeltaRune connects to UnderTale when installed, room_water_redacted will be updated. The theory proposed that once the entirety of DeltaRune is released, perhaps it would connect to UnderTale when they're both installed on your computer and be linked together in some form. Perhaps it'll connect to room_water_redacted and then reveal what it was saying. Give Trot Photoshop Flowey connection and Photoshop Flowey foreshadowing. Give Trot and Photoshop Flowey have some strange connections in terms of designs as talked about in Tier 7. Give Trot's eyes, mouth, and antlers are thought to have represented Photoshop Flowey's body, as well as the photo on his forehead perhaps being a nod to the TV screen. What's also strange is that in the credits of UnderTale, the artist is credited as Magnolia Porter, and then parentheses, and Toby with 3 question marks. Perhaps, according to this theory, Toby made Omega Flowey first, and then asked Magnolia to design Gifttrot after him. But it doesn't end there. Originally, Toby seemed to have had plans to hint at Omega Flowey a lot more than in the final game, and Gifttrot could have been one of these hints. Another hint was best_drawing.png on the walls of Waterfall, but it was cut because it didn't make sense to have it there. Reddit user Carabiel_Watar had a theory that Toby was originally going to heavily hint at Omega Flowey throughout the game, starting at Snowdin and then in Waterfall, but it ended up being scrapped, and Gifttrot is the only remnant of this cut concept left in the game. Monster Kids word search came from DeltaRune. The Monster Kids word search felt strange within the game. It's never mentioned again, and it shows a character never seen in the underground outside of this puzzle. perhaps Sans got the word search from DeltaRune itself. Underbound post spoils Flowey's backstory. In the Underbound post, Flowey pretty much spoils the fact that Flowey is a reincarnated or resurrected version of a dead character. Chris Holmes Weinstein's connection. Chris Holmes is an American typeface designer who helped in the creation of the Weinstein's font. It's possible that Toby named Chris after the designer as a reference to him using the font in UnderTale. Gaster followers mistake motif. This is an old theory talking about the Gaster followers' living counterparts, and made many mistakes which sent them to be erased from time and space similar to Gaster. For Gunner Kid, it involves constantly tripping. For the donut guy, he spent his entire money on a donut. The orange guy forgot to make a reservation at Mettaton's resort, and the striped bird blocked somewhere else. For the clam girl, it's possible that it could be that she misspelled Susie's name. Rousey broke the prophecy. The prophecy states that when the balance between light and dark shatters, the three heroes appear to bring back balance. However, when the three heroes form in the beginning of the game, it happens before balance is completely destroyed. It's possible that because of this, Rousey may have messed up the prophecy. DeltaRune is the bad timeline. In this version of the world, you have a few characters like Azrael, Sans, and Toriel who seem to be fine and arguably better off. But besides them, a lot of other people are arguably worse off than they were in UnderTale, such as Alphys not having a PhD and possibly being homeless, Asgore soon to be homeless, Gerson and the monsters who became the amalgamates in UnderTale died, Undyne hasn't met Alphys and is incompetent at her job, Mettaton is not famous, Papyrus is barely seen and doesn't have too many friends, and there may be an apocalypse that awaits our characters. The Art Book Is Censored. If you've read the art book, you may notice that there isn't much secret content on there. There's no info for Gaster and his followers, or the memory heads, or Sans related secrets. There also isn't anything on Kara. And for a short time on Fangamer, it said how there would be 258 pages instead of the actual number, which is 228. It's possible that Toby left this stuff out because he didn't want to confirm things outside of the actual game. Being evil is encouraged. This revolves around the idea of reverse psychology. UnderTale subtly tries to get you to do immoral options. It's a game where no one has to die, and that got people curious as to what happens when they die. Plenty of characters try to discourage you from killing people, which can make people curious and thus encourages them to do more wrong. Chris Mii costume leak. In December of 2019, an anonymous 4chaner posted a list of characters who would appear on Smash Bros. As Mii costumes, sprites, and a stage, including Chris from DeltaRune. This never came, but the same user later correctly predicted the Violoth character and costumes. It's speculated that these were stuff being considered by Nintendo. The save point is the true original Starwalker. Starwalker looks so much like UnderTale's save point, thus making it the original Starwalker. Azrael lied to Frisk. According to Tumblr user Snowdin, Azrael may be lying in his final speech to Frisk when he states he mistook Frisk for Kara, which could also mean him saying that Kara wasn't the greatest person was him potentially referring to the player. Golden Flowers haunted by Kara. There seems to be a lot of symbolism between the death of Kara and Azrael and their past and the golden flower beds throughout the underground. So perhaps these golden flowers are being haunted by Kara's presence. Flowey impersonated Asgore when Alphys called about evacuation. A strange part about the Genocide route is that Alphys never seemed to have called Asgore about evacuation like Undyne said she would, and Asgore doesn't absorb the human souls either. It's possible that Flowey impersonated Asgore on the other line, and thus Flowey would benefit the player in Genocide, and Asgore never got the call. Flowey kills the evacuated monsters. This was a theory first proposed on a livestream of the Genocide run made by the late streamer Etika. The basic idea is that Flowey went on to kill any monster that the player didn't kill, including the evacuated monsters, Alphys, Monster Kid, Grillby, and more. Hence, why Kara says, there is nothing left for us in this world. There isn't any proof of this theory, but it's still some interesting food for thought. Stop it. If you keep mashing Z during Flowey's introduction cutscene, you'll get a hidden message from Flowey saying,
Stop it!
Here we are based on an old version of Alphys. The early version of Alphys was cut for being too reminiscent of a certain lab song from another game. The theme itself seems to share some similarities to the final version of Here We Are. Flowey face on the tree in Switch trailer. If you look closely at one of the trees during the Switch release trailer for Undertale, you can see Flowey's menacing grin in the leaves. TrueLab Power Source. In the dark depths of TrueLab is a machine that at first glance looks like it's being powered by a human soul. But a lot of evidence points to this not being true, as it only powers the elevators, and of course, if the monsters already had a 7th soul, they would have most likely already broken the barrier. Snowdin banner disappearing. After killing Undyne and getting murder level 20, if you backtrack to Snowdin, the sign is completely missing. It's definitely one of the stranger details. Moldsmal using Froggit's attacks. Moldsmal will have a 4.5 chance of using Froggit's fly attack. Other monsters can use other attacks on rare occasions, such as Doggo using one of Snowdrake's attacks. Peepee Variable. Hidden in the files for Sans' date is the Peepee Variable. As far as I'm concerned, it does nothing. Differences in DeltaRune save files. The 3 different save files in DeltaRune are different in their own ways through Asriel's drawer. Each one will have a different detail as to what's inside. The top save file will talk of a school cross-country shirt with a tear in it. The middle will say that the drawer has a very old school ID with an embarrassing haircut. And the bottom will say that the drawer has a coupon book. Every coupon is for half off a large pizza. UnderTale can tell when you are recording. Some players thought that the monologue Flowey tells you near the end of Genocide is proof that UnderTale records you. More specifically, when he tells you to stop making that face. But this is not true, and it's just a rumor made by fans who never played the game. Ball on title screen. If you type ball on UnderTale's title screen, you'll get a short sound clip which sounds like it came from an RPG. There's also a similar Easter egg in Battle Combat Falcon Revenge, where typing ball gives you a new mode. It's possible that the ball is supposed to be the emotion of excitement, since Toby's persona is the annoying dog, and dogs are famous for loving balls. 7 Days and 7 Nights. YouTuber KemiBoyG talked about how the night might not have been a singular person, but instead a title given to people who create dark fountains, with the title being short for the Knight of this world, similar to how the president can be short for the president of this country, and the motivation of these knights being escapism. The theory also says that the Roaring Knight and Strange Knight are different knights, since it's weird that the knight would have 2 separate titles, with the Strange Knight being Father Alvin and the Roaring Knight being Miss Boom, due to their connections with Gerson, who many speculate to have known about Dark Worlds, with the 2 trying to escape their grief of Gerson's death. The theory speculated that Chris would be the Knight of Chapter 3, nicknamed by the theory as the Quiet Knight, escaping the reality of their broken home. And Chapter 4 would have Susie dubbed the Dark Knight. Chapter 5 would have Asgore dubbed the Horned Knife, and Chapter 6 would have Pizza Pants as the Pizza Knight. And Chapter 7's Knight being Noelle, the Oh Holy Knight, due to how much importance and attention she's been getting from DeltaRune, concept art, and Spamton sweepstakes, and that she's escaping whatever happened to Des, her father's illness, and her mother's neglectfulness, and that this chapter would be her breaking point. Now, chapters 3 and 4 pretty much debunked this, as we see the knight, who is a singular person, but it's still interesting to see that it predicted that Susie would summon a dark fountain in chapter 4, and even though it's clear that this isn't true at all, I still think this is my favorite chapter 2 era theory for the future of DeltaRune. And with that, we end tier 9 in the video. Next up, we'll tackle the final tier, tier 10, and I hope to see you then. Make sure to comment anything I either missed about the entries, as well as any entries you'd like to see added to the iceberg. I'd like to apologize for the longer than usual time since the last upload. I was on a trip with my family and spending time with friends. I promise tier 10 won't take as long to upload, but until then, see ya, and remember to stay determined.